Tiffany Henyard, the supermayor, claims voter suppression. Voter suppression after losing Democratic backing in Township race. You know, Tiff, the supermayor, the dictator of Dalton, Tahoe Tiff without the Tahoe, she's not going down without a fight. What's she going to do? I think she's going to sue. We haven't heard yet. She said she was going to sue today, Monday. Haven't heard. I just looked at my phone. Couldn't confirm anything. Is the lawsuit? Is it happening? Let's get into it. Here we go. So if you haven't been following this storyline, what happened is the Democratic Party in Township of Thornton they held a caucus instead of a primary. And Tiffany Henyard lost, and she is stating because her people weren't allowed to come into the building and a bunch of other stuff that it's voter suppression and they're holding her down, and she's vowing revenge and she's going to sue. She's going to do this. She's going to do that. Let's listen to what she has to say here. This is much of the same. It's much ado about nothing.
Democrat
Jane Placco.
Supervisor Tiffany Henyard is blasting the process that led to her replacement and promising to continue fighting to keep her job.
Put some respect on my name, because I am loved throughout Thornton Township, and that's why I keep going. That's why I have not ever gave up.
Tiffany Henyard, surrounded by about 25 supporters, holding her own rally today to try to salvage an elected position that pays her at least $220,000 a year.
This is our call for justice for voters' rights. Just so y'all understand, we are fighting for voters' rights, which was taken from us on December 3rd.
Tuesday night, Thornton Township Democratic Committeeman State Senator Napoleon Harris called a first-ever caucus at the Homewood Auditorium to pick the Democratic candidate for Township Supervisor, a post Henyard has held for the last 3 years. Usually, the Democratic candidate is chosen in a primary election.
That was wild.
Shouted objections to the proceeding. A voice vote of Township residents nominated Harris as the Democratic candidate, meaning Henyard will now only be able to run as a write-in candidate. She says her supporters were shut out of the caucus.
Hundreds of eligible voters, including seniors, local mayors, local aldermen, local state senators, and local state representatives, were locked out of the venue and forced to stand in freezing temperatures, unable to access the voting process in a timely and fair manner.
Henyard's tenure as Township Supervisor.
But she wasn't on the ballot. She wasn't on the ballot. Her slate wasn't complete. So, you're going to have a judge figure that out, right? This whole voter suppression.
And simultaneously, Dalton mayor has been marked by scandals and allegations of massive overspending, including thousands of dollars to erect billboards with her picture and an illegal donation of taxpayer dollars to a charity in Henyard's name. But today, her supporters, many of them hired by Henyard at the Township or part of her political organization, say the voters should decide who gets slated.
Are they scared of you? Yeah. They must be scared of Tiffany because they won't even allow her to get on the ballot because they know ain't no stopping us now. She will win.
As for how she plans to fight that caucus slating, Henyard has not said whether she plans to run as a write-in candidate or challenge it in the courts.
I've read multiple places that Tiffany Henyard's going to sue. But you know what? When she's lost this job, which pays her $220, $254, $260, something along those lines, way over $200,000. That is her main income source, right? That's her main income source. When she lost that, and it doesn't look like, she's going to get it back anytime soon, you have to, slug it out in court. How much in the way of resources does she have moving forward? Is this a smart thing to do? Because prior to this whole thing blowing up in Tiffany Henyard's face, how close was that race? How close was that race? I'm still kind of shocked that they have a voice vote instead of an actual vote. It's all in favor, say aye, aye. One of those kind of deals. I mean, it looked to me, if Tiffany Henyard had a couple hundred of her supporters outside of the gym in the cold, in the freezing cold, It didn't look like it was that cold. I mean, it looked like it was cold, like, big puffy coat. I mean, but it's not just bone. It's not like it's subarctic, right? It's cold. But if Tiffany Henyard had a couple hundred supporters there, that gymnasium looked like it had 400 or 500 people in it. I'm totally guessing, that were not Tiffany Henyard supporters. So any which way, in my opinion, she's not going to win. I don't think there's enough. She doesn't have enough supporters relative to all the people in the Township of Thornton who don't want her as a mayor. Because she's got people like that in Dalton who don't, I shouldn't have said mayor, Township of Thornton, supervisor, and don't want her as mayor in Dalton. But we're just talking Township of Thornton right now. Just days after losing the battle of Thornton Township Democrats, embattled Supervisor Tiffany Henyard criticized the process that led to her replacement and vowed to continue fighting to keep her job. Put some respect on my name because I am loved throughout Thornton Township. There's a lot of people that would disagree with that statement. There's a lot of people that would say, you've spent a lot of money that's arguably not your money. You funded all kinds of things. You ran around with 4 cops when you didn't really need to. You've always got big bingo going, and you're buying a whole bunch of, gifts for big bingo. Bunch of stuff that people are arguing about, right? All have to do with money. So Tiffany goes on to say, that's why I keep going. That's why I never, ever give up. Henyard said at a rally Saturday, surrounded by 25 supporters. Henyard held the rally in an effort to salvage her elected position, which pays at least $220 annually. This is our call to justice for voters' rights. Just so you all understand, we're fighting for voters' rights, which was taken from us on December 3rd. Now, the way I had it explained to me was that she didn't have a full slate, and accordingly, she was disqualified and she wasn't on the ballot. And that was from Nate the lawyer. So that's my understanding. Everything else beyond that, and I could see it going a number of ways, but bottom line is she's going to have to battle this out in court. She's going to have to go to court. And does she have the resources to make that happen? Because she's already fighting how many dozen lawsuits? Last I heard, it was like 49 lawsuits. 49 lawsuits, an enormous pileup of legal just stuff going on. On Tuesday, Thornton Township Democratic Committeeman and State Senator Napoleon Harris, and former NFL player for 3 different teams, he convened the township's first ever caucus at the Homewood Auditorium, kind of a neutral ground, to select the Democratic candidate for township supervisor, a position Henyard has held for 3 years. Typically, a Democratic candidate is chosen through a primary election. Not this time. Not this time. And you know what? I would say that what Napoleon Harris did, not necessarily unethical, but it's a low blow. It's a low blow. It's getting towards below the belt, but it's not quite there. You know what I mean? I think it was just smart politics. I thought it was brilliant politics. Oh, she didn't fill out her slate, and you're saying that she got to have a full one? Didn't have the assessor on there? Oh, okay. DQ, you're out of here. You know what? What's funny about that argument is that Tiffany Henyard is literally using that against a couple of independent folks in her own mayoral race in Dalton. She said, oh, no, you can't be on this one. You can't be on this one. While she's fighting the other position in Township of Thornton. During the caucus, Henyard shouted objections to the process as a voiced vote of township residents nominated Harris because she wasn't on the ballot as the Democrat candidate. Decision means Henyard would only be able to run for reelection as a write-in candidate. So people are going to have to go out of their way instead of just Tiffany Henyard or Napoleon Harris. Henyard alleged that her supporters were unfairly excluded from the caucus. They might have been, but is a judge going to care? How many judges has Tiffany Henyard pissed off? Is she going to want to take that risk? That she goes into a court and gets treated fairly? Probably not, right? It's probably been enough stuff talked about on her behalf. Hundreds of eligible voters, including seniors, mainly seniors, local mayors, local aldermen, local state senators, and state representatives were locked out of the venue and forced to stand in freezing temperatures. That was a weird thing. I mean, I am so unfamiliar with politics in a city like Chicago, especially south side of Chicago or west side of Chicago. I just don't really know how it works. So if you tell me something is, one way, I'm going to believe you because I've got no other point of reference. We don't have any of this stuff that I'm aware of here in Seattle. It just doesn't operate like this. You don't have these almost like one-on-one battles. And that's what I feel like the Tiffany Henyard versus Napoleon Harris. That's what it is. It's like two warriors going in the ring and just, they're going to use their attorneys to battle it out, right? Henyard's tenure as supervisor, township supervisor and Dalton mayor, it's been marked by controversies. Yeah, she's massive overspending. Now, whether that is enough to get her sent to jail, I don't believe it is. I think she will weasel her way out of it. I think she probably should belong in jail. But look at the precedent. There are so many folks that have probably done just the same thing as she has, but without her style. She just calls so much attention to her name. Like the article goes on to say, the use of taxpayers' dollars to erect billboards featuring her image and an illegal donation to a charity in her name. Those are just some of the things that have come up. You had that trip to Vegas. You've got the Tahoes. You've got the police organization. I mean, you've got so many different little things that she spent money on. How about the $44,000 to Amazon? I mean, we're going to hear about all that in Mayor Lori Lightfoot's report. That comes out in January. So we don't have that far to go, and we'll be starting to get some answers. Will the answers come out be to the point where she actually does some time? Does she get prosecuted? I don't think so. I know you guys don't like that opinion, and I respect that. But here's reality. This is news for reasonable people. This isn't news for people that are just like, I hope what I want happens. This is like, all right, yeah. Are they going to be able to get her to the point where, she's going to be criminally charged? I don't think so. I don't know because I don't know what they're actually alleging, in reality happened. But I think there's enough things like that donation that funded the illegal donation to a charity in her name. I mean, what was up with that charity? And then what was up with her going on that podcast and telling that dude, I forget his name. You guys are going to tell me what his name was. Famous podcaster she went on. And she basically said, yeah, somebody jacked my charity and I got nothing to do with it. And yet she's got video after video after video. She's got all those videos where they were riding bikes. Remember Stan Brown? Don't ask me any tough questions, man. I was just riding a bike. Love that. That was so funny. I haven't seen a lot of him lately, right? Just haven't seen him. Of course, we haven't had many actual meetings anywhere, have we? It's just this convoluted, there's no quorum. And then this whole thing here on December 3rd, I was like, what is going on? We're doing what? What? And literally the next day, I'm like, what happened? I don't get any of this. Well, politricking. Politricking is what Tiffany would say. Despite the scandals, Henyard supporters, many of whom work for the township or are part of her political organization, argued that voters should decide who gets slated for the role. Well, what I would say to the counter to say to that is that if you are a politician, get your act in gear. And if you need to have a full slate in order to participate, then that's what you got to do. The fact that you didn't, maybe she's got a point there, but I'm not hearing that being argued over and over and over. All I'm hearing is that voter suppression, yada, yada, our fingertips were cold, yada, yada. My people, supporters weren't able to get into the gym, whereas they had a private event, and they had all of their supporters into the gym beforehand. And it's like, okay, but if you aren't on the ballot for this caucus, if you aren't even there, then what difference does it make whether your supporters were inside or outside? That's the part where I think right now they're trying to figure out, does she legally have a case? That's what my guess would be. And even if she does have a case, does she have the money to fund it, knowing damn well she's probably going to lose her job in not that long, and she's already trying to fund however many, I don't know how many lawsuits are against her personally, but so many of these are not only her personally, but the village or her personally and the township. So there's money going out the door. There is. And there's not a whole lot of it coming back in from the standpoint of if she loses this job, she loses her, big chunk of her income. And what does that look like? And our attorney's going to want to take her up on this case. I don't know. So many questions, so few answers. All right. That's what I'm going to leave you with. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.